the 20 and the 10, and look at it, he hurdles his way into the...
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Shanalytics episode 39. I'm here with my guy, Jose Sanchez. He's over at All 49ers SI. If you guys don't know him already, first of all, go follow him on Twitter right now. I have his link in the description below. He's been producing some great content all over at All 49ers SI. Jose, interesting day for sure. I'm not going to lie. We did this live stream last week. We were trying to figure out the days to do, and I think things just worked out the right way. just going to say that this seems like a perfect time to do this sort of thing.
Timing's everything, timing's everything in life and football and just whether you need like a job or something. And it works out. The stream is a perfect example of it. Timing's everything in life. And sure enough, there's no such thing as oversaturation when it comes to the football speak field.
No, there isn't. And I do just want to acknowledge really quickly, if you guys saw over on my Twitter, first of all, if you're not following me already, go do that right now and subscribe down below. But I just joined the Tomahawk Nation staff. That's the SB Nation FSU staff. I'll be doing some football content over there starting next week, actually, at spring football practice. So everyone, I hope you look forward to that. And I'll make sure to be putting out lots of content. The 49ers content is not stopping either. We are keeping this thing rolling because Jose, I tweeted this earlier. The 49ers are a nonstop content machine. I was trying to think of things to talk about today. I don't think there's much debate over where we're going to start. And first of all, I want to go to the comments to shout out a few people. Shout out Amin the Dream. That is an amazing shirt, Jose. I love that, man.
Amin, what's up, baby? Appreciate it.
And
my
shout
cousin,
out to
my cousin got it for me from Warriors. Warriors had it was to commemorate Kobe shortly after he passed. My cousin actually was able to snag one from a seat that wasn't going. So sorry, whoever's seat got stolen, but I needed the shirt. We're Lakers fans.
Hey man, free t-shirts are the way to go. Like I'm all about those t-shirts you get at games and at all these events and stuff. So no, you had to make sure you get your hands on that because that's a sick shirt, man.
Yeah, I probably could have sold this for a lot more, but hell no, I'm more about money grows on trees at this point. Money comes and goes. You might as well just get something more commemorative.
Yeah, no, man, and that's a hell of a commemorative shirt to have, really. And we got to start off with the news of the day, though. We kind of talked about it a little bit. We alluded to it, but Adam Schefter opened his mouth today and started talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. And really, at the bottom you can see, will the 49ers keep Jimmy Garoppolo? Adam Schefter report. I wouldn't say it was so much a report as Adam Schefter was more speculating because it was proposed to him like this. He was asked on a podcast over at PFF, what he thinks the 49ers will get for Jimmy Garoppolo in terms of value. How much can they get will be a first-round pick potentially. And Schefter was quick to stop him and say, no, look, while that certainly is a strong possibility, it's not a lock that the 49ers are going to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. And in fact, he was talking about a lot how, people think Trey Lance is green. They think he's inexperienced. But to me, Jose, when I was listening to that clip, the one thing I really honed in on was the fact that he talked about that third-round compensatory pick that the 49ers could receive next offseason if they were to just let Jimmy Garoppolo stay on the team, and then he would enter free agency and sign with another team. Because when you really think about it, if they're talking about getting a third-round pick now or third-round pick next year, in terms of value, it's not much of a difference, right? But the issue is a little more complicated than that, obviously. The 49ers invested 3 first-round picks into their backup quarterback this past season, a guy who they've been saying they've been preparing like Alex Smith prepared Patrick Mahomes his first season. So, Jose, what do you make of this report? And do you actually believe – is there any belief in your heart of hearts that Jimmy Garoppolo, there's any chance he might be on the team next year?
Hell to the no. And that's 2 shows in a row where that's the first 3 words I have said when I was on Sunil's shows last week. And that time was talking about Brady. I'd say there's more of a chance the 49ers actually get Brady than they do actually keep Jimmy Garoppolo. And they're both very, very low. Like, I can't even see them as feasible situations, scenarios, whatever you want to call it. I think it's a scenario where Adam Schefter is being fed information from John Lynch or someone in that organization, because that's just always what it is right now. And that's what's pretty much what the 49ers and teams around the league are going to manipulate Schefter, Ian Rappaport, and all these media sources to put their message out there without actually speaking to us local media people. And that's how you saw a couple weeks ago when Peter King all of a sudden came out raving about Trey Lance, when who else? Jay Glazer, and then Matt Mayoko joined in on the fray. And those pretty much are the top three closest to the organization, to Kyle Shanahan specifically. So they're all feeding in. The 49ers just play smoke signals through the media. You know, the media is the smoke while the 49ers are sending them out. So I see no way in hell that that's going to happen to keep Jimmy Garoppolo. And sure, Schefter talks about a compensatory pick next year. That's great. Where do you have the salary cap to keep Garoppolo right now? Please explain to me, because there are cap. The whole idea was to let go of Garoppolo, was so you can alleviate that and bring in maybe a couple outside pieces who can make you a little more proficient in some gray areas around the team, and then extending Deebo Samuel and maybe potentially even Nick Bosa if that's even on the table. So to me, this is just ludicrous. It's just off-season talk, and it's just, I don't know. I have no idea what the other goal is. If Schefter's not being told this by someone in the 49ers, then my God, this is just pretty much just trying to continue the news cycle of just talking.
Well, and the funny thing is when Schefter was talking about Garoppolo in this situation, he just lightly mentioned he's on a modest $25 million contract. Like that's modest in today's NFL market. I mean, this past season, Garoppolo was the 5th highest cap hit in the NFL. He was at a 13.5% cap rate. That would be higher than any other player in NFL history for a Super Bowl winning team for a single player. And I think the financial reality of the 49ers is, if they want to even keep the current team they have, Jimmy Garoppolo cannot be on this roster. And that's the main reason why I think they're making this move. I think that's the way they justified it to the team, saying, hey, look, Trey Lance is like Garoppolo is 5 times the cost of Trey Lance next season. And really, when you think about the logistics of what they've been doing, of how they've gone about all of this, they trade all these first round picks for Lance with the idea that, hey, we want this Patrick Mahomes experience. Well, in order to have that Patrick Mahomes experience, you need to actually play the guy you drafted, not just let him sit on the bench. It's so funny, Jose. People will, in the past at least, or recently, they'll compare it to Aaron Rodgers' situation. I'm sorry, but Jimmy Garoppolo is not a Hall of Famer. He's not a Super Bowl winner. He's not even Joe freaking Flacco. So when we're really talking about what's going on here, like you said, I think it's smoke signals. And specifically how he mentioned the compensatory 3rd round pick, it seems like the 49ers are trying to raise the value of Garoppolo by saying we'd rather just hang on to him and get that 3rd round pick than take a 3rd round pick. Like, that just doesn't make sense. It really seems like the team is trying to squeeze every ounce that they can out of this Jimmy Garoppolo trade.
Which I think is funny, because I know it's not doing anything for other teams. They don't care. They're gonna call you out. They're gonna be like, the game BS and the cards that you play in school. Maybe some people play it now. That's pretty much what the 49ers are trying to do, but except it's like before they're even getting their sentence out, whoever team's considering a quarterback is immediately calling them out on their BS, because, like, what are you doing now? I mean, I know it's like Niners kind of have to do something like that. Just tell Schefter, like, hey, let's just keep pushing it out there. And if they're pushing it out there, that must mean that they already have a grasp of what Jimmy Garoppolo is going to cost. And they're probably like, ooh, we're not going to get that first that we so covet, or even a second, because I'm pretty sure they will settle for no more than a second, because they want to recoup what they got in Jimmy Garoppolo in the first place. But they're not going to get that first. Who are they going to get it from? The Steelers? I mean, the Steelers aren't that desperate. I mean, I can see the Steelers, they'd be more inclined to tap the Raiders on the shoulder. Hey, what's up with Derek Carr? A guy who can actually move, because people say that, the Steelers would work well for Jimmy Garoppolo. Running game, defense, just culture, whatever, and most ready. Like, yeah, sure. And they mentioned that, hey, and they the offense, they don't really go deep. But did they go deep because they didn't want to, or they went deep because their quarterback couldn't do it? The same. It was kind of funny how Niners proponents are saying that about him when they realize, why do we have Trey? I mean, why do the 49ers have Trey Lance in the first place? Because they want to go deep more, not just because of the mobility, which we'll get to later, but it's like, it's not that Kyle Shanahan, that's the offense he wants. It's the offense that he needs because that's all he has to do. So I think that's a little naive to say in that standpoint. But nevertheless, I just think it's like in week 17 when they tried, was it week 17? When they tried playing against the Texans and Shanahan throughout that week was saying, we don't know who the starter is. It might be holding out hope for Jimmy. Like he did that on purpose as a routine just to burn the Texans practice time. And at that point, if his logic is, if as long as we can get like even just 10 to 20 minutes a day wasting their practice time, because look, these guys only have like 2 hours or less to install practice. So it kind of feels like the same thing for me. It kind of seems pointless, and I'm just seeing like, oh, here we go. It's just more. Jimmy Garoppolo's more likely to get cut than traded, because at that point, then they can just say like, hey, we gave him the freedom of choice, like what they did with Navarro Bowman when they first got here.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I think that's the point I've been coming back to is ultimately like they would rather cut him than just get like a 5th round pick for him. I mean, maybe I don't really know what they want to do here.
I think we would do that because then they will want to like maybe not. They would save face on both sides. And so One thing I know for sure the Niners are going to do, especially since they drafted Trey Lance, is they did like Jimmy. They just didn't like, his performance, his limitations, his woes. So they really like him, the player. I mean, the person especially. So I believe they're going to really try to do what's best for him and for themselves. And so, like you said, if it is like, say, like Commanders, hey, 5th round pick or someone, they're like, are they really going to settle for that? Like, damn, we're going to trade. The Niners are going to make, how are we going to look? How's Jimmy Garoppolo going to look? They're going to make each other look bad. So I think they would probably just be like, and then just play the PR note like, hey, we're doing our best to give our player the most freedom of choice here or whatever. And so that's the respect.
They're such a player-friendly team.
Make them look good.
Yeah, they're such a player-friendly team. This is a family atmosphere. They're trying to do the best for all their players. There totally no insincerities going on. No, I mean, look, with the Garoppolo thing, I think we all know where this is headed. At some point between now and the start of free agency or the very beginning of it, he's not going to be on this roster any longer. And if it stretches further into even further and further along, then the 49ers are making a mistake, because I think when you set aside his play and the injuries and everything that we've discussed about why the 49ers don't want Jimmy Garoppolo any longer, it's financially unfeasible to keep him on this team unless you want to be worse next year. And I don't think the 49ers want to do that. So
yeah, it's just not possible. It's just talk.
And you know what? That's just what this time of the year is for, isn't it? It's these rumors. It's, no one's gotten traded yet. And to me, Jose, and we can end this topic on this and move on after, is I think more than anything, like you said, they've really probably have an idea of where his value is. They know what teams are offering. And they're at this point, they're putting out all the smoke screens. They're using the media any way they can. And even though it may not work, they're going to keep this up until the last minute, because I don't think they're satisfied with any of the offers they've gotten so far.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And let's go back and turn back the clock a little bit to this time last year. It seemed like the 49ers needed a quarterback going into last offseason. It was pretty clear with the exit meetings that Kyle Shanahan was not satisfied with what they were getting out of Jimmy Garoppolo, whether it be by injury or by play, whatever it was. It was clear the 49ers wanted a different starting quarterback moving forward. And when we go back and look at everything that happened, they wanted Matthew Stafford. That seemed like their first target. And it really seemed like that situation could have materialized if the Rams situation had not. So when you go back and look at everything, Jose, Matthew Stafford, Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, all Sam Darnold, even Joe Flacco. I mean, I remember Teddy Bridgewater, the rumors about the quarterbacks that they were interested in was new every single day. I mean, in terms of content, the content was just as good last offseason as it probably will be this offseason. So when we go back and review the quarterback plan, to me, Jose, it seems like the 49ers wanted any quarterback besides Jimmy Garoppolo, and they exhausted every veteran route. And I think what they wanted to do, what they really wanted to do, was trade for Deshaun Watson. I really believe that in my heart of hearts. I think if they weren't going to get Matthew Stafford, they wanted that next best guy, that young guy who can elevate their team in that kind of way. And obviously, the Deshaun Watson situation soured for a lot of different reasons, one main reason, I guess. But when we kind of go back and look at everything, they went through every option, and then it seems like they felt like they had to do something, so they traded up and decided we're going to pick a quarterback, and then that ended up being Trey Lance. So when you review that part of the quarterback plan, what do you think was their thought process, and do you think there was like any coherency with it? Because to me, it seems like they were a little all over the place last offseason.
Yeah, they were over the place, but I think that's just doing the due diligence. Overall, the goal was they just knew, which thank God they knew.
Yeah.
Upgrade the quarterback, and they figured it out because they realized, they messed up by not getting Tom Brady in 2020. So look what happened. That's ultimately what I think that was it was the second to last straw that broke the camel's back. What ended up breaking his camel's back was how woeful Jimmy Garoppolo looked in his 5 starts in 2020 and his inability. So I think that was the final straw. And they're just like, you know what? Can't do it. Can't be rolling out Nick Mullins and CJ Beathard. So he's tired of it. So in terms of what, they zigzagged, I think ultimately they wanted Stafford the most. I just think they were kind of late on the trigger. And in terms of, maybe finding a price point, and I think the Lions already had the in terms of the Lions and Rams at the connection, because I think, what was it, the GM of the Rams? I mean, the Lions drafted Goff. So, that was already kind of like an uphill battle in and of itself. I think that's ultimately where they went, because that was where it started off, and that's where you start venturing elsewhere. They started tapping on the shoulder. So I'm not sure how serious they were about, like Bridgewater or Donald, but I think for sure they asked about it, poached, hey, what would it take to cost these players? Because, that's what plenty of teams do. And the thing is, a good portion of it doesn't even get reported. You ask anyone who can been around like teams. I mean, I've had like a few friends who've like worked in the Raiders before like that, and they tell me like, dude, some of this talk is just like they get talk and this isn't getting traction and this isn't getting reported. It's just thing is like you can't just be the the reporter that cried wolf and just be like, hey, they had a call, just every single time. Like, come on, at that point, come on, where's the real traction here? We don't want to just hear about a call, but the reason why it was last year is because it was a quarterback position. It was Garoppolo, and that was, the most polarizing position player on the 49ers. So it made sense. So in terms of reviewing the quarterback plan, I think they made the right route in terms of trading up picks, because especially with the way they want to do the run it back mode so much times. And, it might not be as successful this season in terms of signing players. I don't know about the actual season, but in terms of signing players because of their cap situation. And the only reason why I think they got so many players back last year in the first place was because of the COVID market. So I think right now they're in a good spot with Lance. I think ultimately, I don't know, they didn't probably get the best player in the draft class, but because I feel like, even if you put Fields there, obviously Trevor Lawrence, and maybe not Mac Jones, but another quarterback there, they would have excelled anyways because of the talent of Kyle Shanahan. So ultimately, I think they've rounded up in a good spot, and the way they got here, the steps they took works out for them in their favor.
Yeah, no, it really did in terms of how everything played out for the offseason, because I think if you look at the premium players they have on their roster, like you mentioned, in terms of running it back, you need to pay those players in order to run it back. And really, I see the Trey Lance move as a financial commitment to the young players they already have on their roster: Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk, potentially even in the future. Maybe not so much. But I think when you look up and down this roster, the 49ers knew that they had maximized what they could do with Jimmy Garoppolo. That was pretty clear. What they didn't do is maximize their roster. And in order to do that, they had to make a change at the quarterback position. So I don't think their thinking was wrong. I think it's just interesting to look back and see how everything played out. Although I think, you're right, because really they needed to kick the tires on every single option. They needed to explore every single possibility so they knew what they can get the most out of. And the one thing I wanted to also review with the quarterback plan is starting Jimmy Garoppolo this season, because similar to the spot they were in last offseason, the 49ers can trade or cut Jimmy Garoppolo with almost no financial penalty. Why do you think they ultimately decided to stay with Jimmy Garoppolo as the starter for the full season? And why don't you think they even really considered Trey Lance? Because it seems like there wasn't much of a quarterback competition at all.
I think there was quarterback competition. They just never came out and said it because so many. And I do believe when Jim Trotter last week said, they did consider him until that fractured finger. The only reason I said it when it was happening during the preseason that while he had a good first 10 days of training camp, he did teeter off. And I think that's true. What everyone says, I think that's consensus. And even though I was only there for like 5 practices, I wasn't even there for the first 10 days. He went off, but still, when I was there, like other than one practice where he looked wow. He just looked neck and neck with Garoppolo, but at that point, when they look neck and neck, it's like, okay, well, just go Trey Lance then. But then
Right.
again, it's different because it's when you get the pass rush in your face, that's definitely it's not the same. That's why all this talk about he's not ready. Like, no duh. That's why you got to play him.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we'll say in terms of plan, is starting Jimmy Garoppolo. Look, Kyle Shanahan was validated the moment they went to the playoffs, and it just became even cemented in the NFC title game. Like, ultimately, we were kind of wrong. But I do think that they would have been relatively close to where they would have been with Trey Lance, because in theory, you would hope the first half of the season would have been rough goings, which it was rough going in the offense anyways in that first half of the season. And it wasn't really so much quarterback play. It was just, God, what was that offensive identity? If it wasn't for the defense being an anchor, they probably would have lost another game or two. But sure. I just see it as that if Trey Lance had blown up against the Chiefs, especially the Chargers, because the first game against the Chiefs, it was like, okay, decent start, whatever. And then he picked it up in that second game against the Chargers and looked really good, and then still looked pretty good against the Raiders. And at that point, it turns into a Raiders Derek Carr moment when it's like the coach is like, my hands are tied. He looked hella good out there. I have an explanation to tell you guys, the media, tell the fans, tell the teammates. Like, did you guys see that out there? And you say the way that some of these players are talking about Lance through Montana, true or not, which I don't think it's too out of the realm of possibility because they know they're a playoff team, is that they can't project or see the future like that. I'm not saying like you need to do that, but there's a reason why most general managers who make the moves should be more empowered than a head coach, because they can see past them in the moment. And I think ultimately where Shanahan saw immediately, okay, Garoppolo, I know what I have with him. I'm ready to win right now with him. I can already coach around him. And look, he did. And we're Trey Lance, and I think even Shanahan said that before, where, hey, when he's starting, that means I have to learn again too. So it's almost like I got to develop him and then develop myself to coach with him. So I think personally, Shanahan wasn't ready to, or even wanted to like invest in that right now. That's the thing with coaches. They live too much in the now. They don't project. That's why I do think Mac Jones was a close second in being drafted, because he is the most quarterback ready in that draft. And that's what a lot of coaches and coordinators love the most. They just see someone that they can put immediately in the system and just run it. They don't really see too much like, all right, let's see what he's going to be from this quarter of the season to the end of the quarter, whatever. And I don't think they really saw it that way. They just saw like, we have a bunch of talent. Let's win now with Garoppolo, and maybe just hope Lance learns a little bit from behind the scenes, even though he's not really, they already admitted he knew the system by the time the season started, and he's not really getting worked on personally. No. So I think at this point, this is going to be something we're all going to circle back to by the time it's like the middle of the season in 2022 to see if Garoppolo, Lance is looking a little hit or miss. At that point, we're going to be like, all right, did they make the right decision? And then, if they miss the playoffs or whatnot, or regardless of if they miss the playoffs or not, and Lance looks so skittish, imagine what we're going to say if we just said, what if you guys started in rookie year? Now year 2 would have been catapulted, and all you did was turn his year 1 with Garoppolo into the same thing year 2. You're just pretty much just running on a treadmill and going nowhere. So, I mean, in that case, like, again, Shanahan was validated in a way. But I think ultimately, again, this is going to be something we look back to some points in the season about Lance.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I think it's going to be a big talking point once we really get a feel for where Trey Lance is at some point around the bye week midpoint of the season. I think that's a great point. And the one thing also, Jose, that I'm really thinking about now is that it feels like in order for Trey Lance to have taken over that starting spot this past season, Jimmy Garoppolo would have either had to outright fail in like spectacular fashion, or Trey Lance, like you said, would have had to blow the team out of the water before the start of the season. I don't think either of those things happened.
No, yeah, 1,000%. And that's why Kyle Shanahan said that, hey, had we not won that Rams game, then Lance probably would have started, or it would have been soon. So it's like, it pretty much was all right, we failed, play Lance. And if they did fail, then my God, the floodgates would have been blown open by us and Grant and everyone just saying like, you guys are so stupid for not starting Lance from the start. Look, no duh. But in a way, he does get the last laugh because, hey, they went to the NFC title game, and that's really what they wanted to do, make a serious run like that, even though, Garoppolo didn't really play that much of a factor about it. But and again, hey, that's all you got to do is get there. That's what they did. But ultimately, I think it's poetic justice in how they lost to the Rams, where one team was fully committed to making the quarterback move and the other team was just straddling the fence. So you kind of saw what happened there.
Exactly. They played 1 foot in, 1 foot out the entire season with this whole quarterback situation. I mean, really, since they drafted Trey Lance, 2021 was, hey, are we going to do this? Are we not going to do this? Maybe, maybe not. There was just this weird vibe all year and I think, like you said, with Jim Trotter's report, it's clear they were very close to potentially starting Lance. So it was not out of the realm of possibilities. And it's definitely something that easily could have happened. And I want to go over to the comments real quick. I see Ekim's over there. First of all, he says, "Hi, Jose. Good to see you, Ekim, in here." He said, though, not sure what Trey could learn from Jimmy. Besides the open throws Jimmy makes. What's he saying here? Okay, he's saying maybe he could learn to throw to open DBs and linebackers. You know what? It seems like Trey Lance could have learned by learning not what to do through Jimmy Garoppolo. But yeah, I don't know. Like you said, Jose, I don't know what Trey Lance really gained during the season besides the games he actually played in. I mean, we knew he was on the scout team, but even then, it's like, how much better can you really get in that sort of situation? It's just strange. And one more comment. Yeah, Ekim, you nailed it. This team is sitting on the fence, make the move or not. And Jose, I think that was the most frustrating thing for me all season, was that it really felt like this team wanted to do two things at once. They wanted to try and win in the present and win in the future. And by trying to do both of those things, maybe they didn't fail at both, but I think they hurt their chances at maximizing what they could do with either of those things. Because the way I see it is, if you really thought you were a true Super Bowl contender the way they talked about that they were, why didn't you use all that draft capital and those picks to go up and make your team better and make the team better around Jimmy Garoppolo? If they think they have a winning window, why not do that? And then if you don't think you have a winning window for the present and you're drafting that guy for the future, why do you keep Jimmy Garoppolo around? I think that's the thing I really get back to more than anything with this plan is, although it did work, and you're right, they made it to the NFC Championship game. You cannot gloss over that. And I think the fact that Shanahan had so much pressure on him before the season, during the season, there was all those moments. I think that mattered a lot too. But by sitting on the fence, it feels like this team potentially wasted some time with Trey Lance, at least in my opinion. I know some people will push back on that, but I really ultimately feel like they maximized what they could do with Jimmy Garoppolo. And at the end of the day, you don't know if Trey Lance would have done better. In fact, I'm not saying he would have done better, but I think he would have provided a higher ceiling for this team. And I don't think that's unfair.
No, 1,000%. Again, it's just, that's why you play your rookies. You got to develop. That's why these coaches get paid them big bucks. Coach your players up, develop them. All right. So when we say in theory, it's because it's all on you, Kyle, and your coaching staff to figure it out.
Yeah, and believe in your conviction, right? That's the other thing too, Kyle. Just don't ride the fence anymore with this issue, especially this offseason. If they continue this nonsense through the year and we're sitting here in August talking about Jimmy Garoppolo, I swear I'm going to start these streams for 5 minutes just banging my head into the wall because it's getting exhausting, man.
It's going to be your new intro.
It's just my new intro. Here's a brick wall. Here's me. It's some of this stuff with the 49ers is a little exhausting sometimes.
It really is.
But I do want to talk about the guy that, hopefully will be starting for the Niners next season. Trey Lance, obviously, his mobility is going to be a big part of his game. And I wrote an article over on All 49ers SI talking all about this. You guys should go check that out. With Lance and his mobility, I think, first off, the obvious thing in terms of him improving the 49ers offense is 49ers run game is going to be better. If you look, this past season, they were top 5 in attempts, but they were middle of the pack in yards per attempt as a running attack. And that is not what you need out of a Kyle Shanahan offense. And it doesn't seem like they were maximizing their efficiency with that, especially with I mean, with what they were doing with Deebo Samuel, how could they not add to what they were already doing? So I think if you look at those two games, Jose, that Trey Lance started, obviously it's a small sample size, but their yards per attempt was higher in both games than their season average. And I think it's pretty clear that just by Trey being in the game, he adds a different dimension to this running game that just is not there with Garoppolo, because Garoppolo is a non-factor.
I think also I know it's not necessarily mobility, but in the Texans game, there's something by Next Gen Stats that talked about, what was it, air yards or depth target, something like that. It was the most averaged by a quarterback for the 49ers in like 8 years, pretty much since Cap days when he was in his prime. So that, I mean, Jesus, that's right there. And then you can see the pass chart. It wasn't just like a cone in the middle. It was literally all spread out. So that's why I loved about watching that. It's like, yes, utilize everything. So it's not just about the mobility, about he can go horizontal in the backfield. So it's kind of funny how the Next Gen Stats has that heat map where it shows you where he's delivering his targets. It's not just that Garoppolo has a cone just straight in the center of the field. It's, if you look at his pocket presence, it's just a cone too in the center of the field between the hashes, where Lance, it's going to be both ways. Heat map targeting, throws left to right, heat map scrambling in the pocket, left to right. Maybe not sideline, but that's something that adds like a new element, whether it's designed or not. But one thing I want to see more of, because I'm not going to speak with such certainty, is I felt like Lance sometimes was moving a little bit sooner than he needed to in the pocket, which, is understandable. No duh. That's your first 2 games out there, especially in the Seattle game, maybe I'm thinking of. I'm not gonna hold that against him. Even if he played like half a season, I won't hold that against him. That's something you got to work through, and something that your coaches should probably, when you're practicing, is, all right, we're going to spend like an hour on this. Go do it. Go learn how to shuffle your feet. That's something that Shannon talks about the most with quarterbacks, is footwork. And it's why we hate Jimmy Garoppolo with his tap dancing and throwing off his back foot and all this ugly atrociousness that we see from him, that you hope to see from Lance more. And especially with like his release, instead of having that loopy release, having that late thing. Because the one thing Garoppolo has, which, it's not an elite trait that, other beat writers will try to like boast about his quick throwing motion. Like, great, you're a quarterback with a quick throwing motion. Awesome. Welcome to the NFL. But that's one thing Lance needs to just work on the most, because his mobility, and that all like ties into mobility, is not just like, okay, let's roll him on boot actions, which hopefully we see more of that again, because I feel like I don't even know the breakdowns or where to look at these stats, is what the usage of the bootleg action plays or anything like that was this season. But I felt like it was the lowest under Shanahan in forever. I remember first year covering the team, 2019, that's all it was. Flow everyone one way, and it's not just the Y leak. It's just, and I think it's because they realize Garoppolo sucks under center, and I think that's ultimately where they stemmed from. And I don't know if Lance is going to be too much better than that, but at least they know like he has the physical tools, and he's a bit of a freak of nature where it's like he bounces out, defender in his face. Oh, I'm just going to pop it in there. So there's a lot more capabilities. The ceiling is definitely raised. Whether he's going to execute it at a fine level is a question mark. He probably won't at first.
No,
but it's just a whole new dynamic added that's going to make the offense more dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. And one stat I was actually finding, because I remember I read this after the season ended, Jose, Jimmy Garoppolo has a lower average depth of target than yards per attempt. That's kind of wild when you think about it. And really, it just goes to show the story of the 49ers offense, which is, it's not about Jimmy Garoppolo. It's about almost everything else, especially this past season. But like kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about Lance's mobility, I think the one thing that we did see in terms of his pocket presence and everything was from the beginning of that third quarter in that Seahawks game when Jimmy got hurt and he went in. So the end of that Texans game, I thought I saw real improvement in terms of pocket presence, understanding pressure. The one thing for me, Jose, that I really want to see him improve on, I think the thing that Shanahan might get a little frustrated with is his decisiveness in the running game. It felt like, especially in that Texans game, there were situations where he just needs to pull the trigger and get those easy 5 yards instead of keep looking downfield. If anything, this is a guy who needs to learn how to run more often, I think, because really, unlike some of these other mobile quarterbacks, he is not looking to run first. He is looking to pass up until the very last second, almost to a fault, really. And I think for him, if he improves on that next year, I, I think that would be a huge, huge thing for him. And really, when I went back in the article and what kind of spurred the whole idea for how his mobility would improve the offense is his pressure to sack rate, Jose, is incredible, actually. When you really look at it, amongst starting quarterbacks, the only starter who was better was Josh Allen last season. So in terms of evading pressure and being able to keep the play going downfield and make an off-schedule play, Trey Lance was elite at it last season. I mean, it's obviously a small sample size, but when I think about that Texans game, especially that series that started at the back of the end zone, right, with the all slants that he misses, and then he makes the play to Brandon Ayuk on the boundary. Then a few plays later, he misses the easy throw to Kittle, but he's rolling left and decides to sidearm it to Trent Sherfield. It's plays like that I think really will pique Kyle Shanahan's interest. And at least initially, I feel like that will be the biggest improvement for this team, Jose, because whereas Jimmy Garoppolo, if he misses that read, it is almost game over entirely for that play. With Trey Lance, man, he just has a much larger margin for error than Jimmy Garoppolo does. And it's vastly different, actually. He can mess up and still make a very positive play. Whereas with Jimmy Garoppolo, I kind of talked about this with Grant actually on his channel the other day, how, with 3-point shooters, how like a J.R. Smith type, right? You'll see him take one. You'll go, no, yes. Like, and they finally make it. With Jimmy Garoppolo, when he rolls outside the pocket, it's like, no. Like it is not going to end well. And every time that would happen this season, I would just get this feeling inside me, like, no. Like, what the hell is about to happen? What's going to go wrong? That is not the case with Trey Lance. And I feel like that more than anything will be the key to him improving the offense at first and getting comfortable and making plays like that.
Yeah, I think my final point about him mobile, when you say you want him to take those easy 5 yards, I honestly think Shanahan was in his head. I think he was thinking a lot, Lance, in those games. I noticed that immediately in preseason. And I think that started from training camp, because a lot of talk is, you're too big, especially when you're a young player and you can move. He can't expect to do that in training camp. And like, he can't make that a habit, because the reality is there is a pass rush there. And if he had scrambled a lot more in training camp, then it's like, all right, cool, you're going to do that in a game. Great. Now you're missing all these players instead of keeping your head upfield. So I think he might be doing that a little too much. But it's kind of hard to say. He should be keeping that mindset, but there's going to be that comes with growth. The same thing why, and I remember all my family members are Niner fans. They were all pissed off talking to me like, why did Trey Lance not reach for the pylon in the Arizona game? Why did he try to truck his defender? I'm like, that's what he did in college, because he was trucking. That's going to come through learning. He's never had to. I never watched more than a single game of Trey Lance, other than the one game his rookie year his rookie year, the year before, where he stopped playing. And I can literally probably say with such confidence, without watching him, that I'm pretty sure he never had to do that. He either was walking in or he was trucking fools.
Yeah.
So that's something that he's going to learn. And that's the same thing now, where he's can't learn. He's going to have to eventually learn, like, okay, even though I'm keeping my head up the field, I don't need to always just, try to force something in. I can just try to take the easy out, it's learning. He's young. He's a rookie. So
exactly.
Patience.
No, and I think that's the biggest thing with Lance. And really, I feel like the most encouraging thing is we did see some of that growth over the course of the season. I still think he really needs to be better about finding that balance, like we're talking about, trying to pick your moments and really understand the situation well. But like you said, that's only going to come with time and more reps and more games. So I'm really excited about Trey Lance offense moving forward, because I really think sky's the limit for Kyle Shanahan for this offense. Kyle, you do not have any more excuses for your offense. Like, you have your quarterback, you have the playmakers in place, you have a very good offensive line, which we'll talk a little bit about next. But really, I think this is the season where, if it isn't all coming together, we see it headed in the right direction. Because it really felt like Kyle was not held back by Jimmy Garoppolo, but he couldn't do everything he wanted to do. And I think the hope moving forward is that Trey Lance expands that, and we see. I think they'll keep the same offense in place, but really just expand off of it and add to it. And I think, look, it's not going to be pretty at first, but like you said, with the more reps Trey Lance gets, the better he's going to get. And we're going to see that growth throughout the regular season next year.
Can't wait.
And in terms of free agency, because free agency is really right around the corner for the NFL, the 49ers are going to be an interesting situation with Laken Tomlinson, where I think they may not be able to retain him, Jose. It seems like he may just be a little bit out of their price range, especially considering the fact that they're in negative cap space right now. But how do you think they'll go about the offensive line this offseason? And do you feel like, I feel like the most dire situation for the offensive line is you have to replace all three interior spots, because Alex Mack could potentially retire. He talked about that in his closing press conference. They might want to need an upgrade over Daniel Brunskill, and Laken Tomlinson might leave in free agency. So how do you think everything plays out for the offensive line?
Yeah, that's going to be the most trickiest and the key that they need. And I feel like you have to like default and go with stability. And that's why like Laken's really, really tricky here, because, you want to keep him to keep continuity there on that left side. You want to roll out your essentially rookie quarterback still kind of thing, a rookie with some tread. You don't want to just literally just end the right, because the interior is already an issue with center and right guard. And then not even from center to right tackle, because McGlinchey's coming off of that torn quad, and you don't know how he's going to be, even though he looked solid in his limited starts last season, but you just don't know how he's going to respond. Is he going to look worse? How's that going to be? So that's a question mark. Yeah. Brunskill is capable of starting a starting caliber right guard, but he's not someone you ideally want to roll, 17 games with. That's why you got Aaron Banks. I think where Banks is going to have to come in key here. He needs to get a starting spot either at left or right guard. If Tomlinson leaves, that's probably what they end up doing. Would make the most sense, because I always find it funny how these teams always try to flip these rookies to the other side. Lions and Penei Sewell, that just so happened to work, but it's just, why would you not draft the guy that was his moneymaker? It's like when the 49ers do this a lot, Solomon Thomas, like, why are you putting him on the edge? Kick him inside. Eric Armstead, why are you putting him so much on the edge? Kick him inside. I understand you want to keep the offense on its heels a bit, but when it starts, the snaps start, raising more than 10% of what's not their strength, then what are you really doing here? And they're trying to do the same thing with Diamador Lenore last season. They tried putting him in the slot, even though he was looking great his first few weeks in practice outside. So I don't know. I don't know if it's like if it's the thing that they're desperate to do out of need, or if they just see like, wow, I think he's capable of it, or as like a way of saying, hey, we view you this highly. Nevertheless, that left guard spot is key. I said personally, I think that's on Snell's channel. I think that's a top priority, one of them, if not him or DJ Jones. But I can understand why they let him walk, because he might command more. He might just be priced out. It might be worth it. And, you don't really pay guards a premium like that. It's just tackles and then centers. And I think that's where you're going to have to get your bang for your buck with Aaron Banks. You spent a second-round pick on him. Yes. And when you spend second-round picks on guards who you can find starting caliber after the second round, you kind of maybe reached a little bit on him, and he didn't start.
Well, and in fact, Jose, almost every other team after the 49ers in round 2 or round 3 found an interior starting guard or center. So you can pick those guys there and make the most out of them.
That's definitely a fact. That's why I didn't think I didn't see. I just read the way that the league history drafts, and it's like, hey, it is possible to find them in the 3rd through 7th rounds of starting caliber guard. I don't know why you had to spend one so high in the second round pick on Banks, especially when he was getting mollywopped. And not too much was on his own. Not too much was his fault, because he was forced to switch. God, man, there's no way in hell they didn't draft him to not start at right guard. I'll tell you that much. They didn't do that on purpose to get a redshirt year. He just failed. Just like Trey Sermon failed not a little bit. He did fail. They thought he could see some things, and they just said, hey, he wasn't getting it. Maybe that'll change with Lance, but who knows? But to me, yeah, you can't do a full-on rebuild. If you have more than 2 shuffling parts, I think even 2 shuffling parts, that's going to be a little bit tough sledding. And then you could see where some of the rookie hiccups are going to hit Lance, is if that offensive line isn't just structured enough to keep him upright.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I always get back to with the offensive line, Jose, is Whereas other positions like the defensive line or even their linebackers or receivers, where they're able to develop these players and they can, or running back, right? They can go and find all these guys, undrafted guys, late round guys, random free agents who other teams have given up on. They can make the most out of them. They have not proven that you can do that with the offensive line. In fact, if anything, that's the opposite. It's the position they struggle the most at. So I think, while initially my thought was, hey, Lincoln Tomlinson, they're just going to be priced out of him. They're not going to be able to bring him back. They might just have to. And if they don't, like you said, it'll be a very dire situation because you're either starting Aaron Banks, who didn't play at all last year for whatever reason, or you're signing someone else to start there. I just think, do they need to rebuild the offensive line? Not necessarily, but what they need to do is carefully plan for the future because, okay, let's address the center thing really quick. Even if Alex Mack doesn't retire this season, you need a contingency plan in place for the years after, really. And
late round pick.
Exactly. 5th round pick, 4th round, 6th round, somewhere in there. You need someone who you can trust moving forward because center position is so important for that Shanahan offense. And if you have to have another experience of a rotating cast of doors at that spot, it is not going to go well for Trey Lance. And they need to support him all they can. So I guess they don't need to rebuild the offensive line, Jose, but I could really see them in a dire situation where they may have to replace all 3 of these spots and they might not want to. But look, I think moving forward, if they can draft another offensive lineman in this draft, I would do it again, actually. And the reason I don't have as much of a problem with them drafting Banks where they did is because I think they're so poor at picking the position. They need the most premium guys. Now, obviously, that didn't work out with Aaron Banks. You drafted Creed Humphrey, and we'd all be sitting here saying, hey, you're geniuses. But the fact is they have not hit their offensive line. They have not figured out that position group year after year. I mean, with the Trent Williams thing, they really kind of got that happened out of nowhere. And it's because Trent Williams wanted to go to Kyle Shanahan. It's not because he wanted to go to the 49ers necessarily. So I look, I don't think like you said, Lakin is key number one. Like if they can bring him back, they absolutely need to do it. And look, I think it's a shame that you can't tag an offensive lineman as a guard because I know the 49ers would do it for Lakin Tomlinson this offseason. But it'll be interesting to see where they take this spot. I certainly think they'll go after some guys in the late part of the draft, maybe some free agents. You could see some Anthony Lynn disciples potentially, even some backups maybe who weren't getting the run before in those interior spots. I think more than anything, they just need depth, really, because I think they're set with their outside tackles. Like you mentioned with McGlinchey, he's obviously coming off the injury, but outside of McGlinchey and Trent, they have replacements for those guys if they go down. Now, they're not ideal replacements, but at least you have that next player available with the guard and center position. If they lose any of those players, it is very, very dire for them in terms of filling that spot.
Yeah, you can't afford too many key departures, but I do think Banks is going to be a starter, either left or right guard, for sure. At some point,
he has.
And that's more of a forced thing. The same thing why Javon Kinlaw is definitely going to start next year, no matter what. At some point, you draft these players. That's the value speaks for itself. You have to do it.
Yeah. Well, and hey, man, who else forgot about Javon Kinlaw? Because you mentioned that name, and I just totally am like, it's so funny. Like I mentioned this the other day on Twitter. I completely just forgot Trey Sermon existed because I think the 49ers did as well. Like they have all these players this past year where they either play a little bit, you see that spark Diamador Lenore, and then they go to Siberia. You're never going to see that player again. Like it's just crazy how so many times this team, maybe it's not that they don't play their best players all the time, but there's a certain level where Kyle just needs to have a conviction with these young players like Juwan Jennings over Mohamed Sanu, right? These situations that they always run into where Kyle trusts the veteran more than he trusts the young guy who's unproven. So yeah, I mean, the interior is going to be very fascinating. People always mention corner. They mention the wide receiver. Oh, well, not wide receiver, but corner or all these other spots.
Wide receiver at one point.
We did, yeah. But to me, I think the offensive line is the number one position, not position of need maybe, but number one priority this offseason in terms of figuring out what the hell is going on. But let's go to another position that people certainly have complained about. People have had quite have very extreme opinions on with this 49ers starting cornerback situation. Obviously, by the end of the season, for their boundary guys, they were able to get Mosley. They got Ambry by the end of the season, but and we're not talking about slot corner here because the K'Wan Williams situation is totally different from what we're talking about. But Jose, do you feel like they need to acquire another like starting level boundary cornerback this offseason?
They need more depth. I think they're fine with the starters now. I think,
Yeah.
and it pays me to say as much because I love my cornerbacks. That's what I played all my life. Is that they can get away. I mean, all the questions about corners going into that season, it's like, look, they were still an elite defense with the shuffling corners. They had Josh Norman there winning games. I mean, so I think it's, once again, that's the most proven of anything of a point. And then
Dante Johnson was a key piece this year, right? I mean,
oh yeah. But you know, I remember I wrote that a week ago that, you know, Dante Johnson is someone they should bring back. I feel like I've changed his stance on him. It's like, wow, you know, just the versatility that he showed and actually being capable, not really good, but capable. I mean, he has some really good moments, but he definitely bring him back. And then the other day, I wrote about veterans that they could look at if they see fit, if they want to go that route. Because we already know, you know, they don't view cornerback as a highly thought of position. That's why when they passed on Asante Samuel Jr. for Aaron Banks, that was kind of easy to foresee because they don't view it as high. What they do is they see the trenches, defensive line, pass rushers, and offensive line. Pass rushers and wide receivers are the top two most spent position draft pick wise, more than I think anything else combined, to be honest. So they just don't view it that way. And you can see the way they've drafted. Their two highest draft picks were Ambry Thomas and Akilla Witherspoon. After that, what was it, DJ Reed in the 5th or something like that? Yeah. And then, I mean, you can see who they've gotten. They know how to bargain bin and dumpster dive for these players. You know, Emmanuel Mosley is an undrafted free agent. Richard Sherman, you know, low risk, high reward. Jason Verrett, low risk, high reward. Even K'Wan Williams, you know, he was out of the league, I think, at some point. I think he was in trouble before the Niners signed him. That's only because Kyle knew him from Cleveland. So cornerback is easily by far, I think, their least thought of position in Kyle Shanahan's view. I think he views even punter and kicker higher than that because he's actually cashed out on Robbie Gould and spent a 4th round pick on a punter. So that's where I'm at right now. And it's so disrespectful to my corner people. I hate it, but you know, that's ultimately where they can get by. They've proven it. And I don't see them going really ever full court or even half court press, quarter court press on a corner in the free agent market, trading, none of that. Would be nice to think of, but ultimately, you know, they don't need it. I'd rather probably they just go after like another like good pass rusher because you already know D4 is going to get injured again if he even comes back at all.
Oh, no, I mean, and it's so funny to me, Jose, because they focus so much on the trenches, like you say, but then they're able to go get DJ Jones. They're able to go get Contavious Street, Arden Key. I mean, they have all these guys who, when you talk about bargain bin hunting, they're the master of bargain bin hunting at that position. But then at corner, the position where they struggle maybe, and you could say they need an upgrade, it is the position that they're going to bargain hunt at. It's just, you know, it's interesting the dichotomy of their thinking. You know, spending that 1st round pick on Javon Kinlaw, not maybe going and selecting, I don't know, AJ Terrell. But I mean, that's all hindsight now, obviously. I think moving forward, like you said, I think they absolutely need a depth piece at that boundary corner. They at least need someone who you're going to spend $4 or $5 million on who can start if a player goes down for a long stretch, if need be. But at the same time, they don't need to go out and sign a guy who's absolutely going to be starting over Ambry or Mosley, because I think they are happy with what they have with Ambry and Mosley. If anything, I feel like they need that versatile corner who can play slot and outside and will be their full-time slot guy if need be. And then they can go, you know, Ambry, Mosley, whoever that free agent is at slot. And then when they're not in nickel, they can just go with whoever that free agent, let's say Stephon Gilmore, just, you know, just an example. Let's say it's Gilmore and Mosley outside. You do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how they attack the position. Although I think, you know, people are so focused on corner. I see in the comments, safety to me is the biggest need in terms of draft right now. I think if they're going to go up and take any secondary guy in the 2nd or 3rd round, I really like the Baylor one right here that Swanson mentioned. He's a really versatile guy who can play slot. He can play safety. He can do a lot of different things. But Jose, I don't think they're just going to go after one of those strictly boundary guys. It's just does not seem like it's high on their list of needs. And if they are going to spend any money or spend any capital, it seems like slot would be the way to go. But I guess before we get out of here, we only have a few more minutes. With K'Waun Williams, do you think they bring him back? And if not, who do you think they replace him with, or how do you think they try and replace him?
I think both are looking probably elsewhere because I'm just reading from last season. Same thing with Tart, who I have Jaquiski Tart as my number one lock that he's not coming back.
Wow. Okay.
Only because you look at Tart and Williams, they were both kind of like one of the later re-signings for the 49ers because they were looking elsewhere. They were waiting field offers, and Tart never got a single offer. No duh, because he played like 6 games last season and wasn't really too hot either in those limited games. K'Waun, same thing, limited, although he actually did look pretty good in some of the games, but once again, limited, and he's injured every year. It's ridiculous, and he's up there in age. This past season, he's shown he's not that great of a cover corner as much, although, you see him getting sauced up by Cooper Kupp. Who doesn't get sauced up by Cooper Kupp? I feel like you can't really knock him when you're getting beat by one of the best out there.
No.
But still, up there in age and injury prone. The injury prone one is the most concerning because he proved it this past season. And last season he didn't remember, he had talks with the Chiefs, and I just think the only reason why he came back is, once again, he wasn't liking the contract. I think the Chiefs were giving him a 1-year deal, probably something measly, and he figured, if I'm going to sign a 1-year deal, I'm just going to go back to the Niners and try to re-up my value. So that's why I think he's gone, and I'm not sure the Niners care for him, especially since they were already tinkering with Diamador Lenore in the slot. Re-signed Dante Johnson. Now you have another person who knows the slot. Tavarius Moore knows the slot, and that's where you can get maybe what you just mentioned, Jalen Petre. If bring him into the slot. I talked about on free agencies you can look for in terms of like cost-effective players who would probably be more of a benefit, like Bryce Callahan. I know he's kind of similar in age in K'Waun too, and not too much of the injury bug last 2 seasons, but since Broncos, it's been a little up there. But slot corner is important. I think they view that more than boundary corner. That's going to be the most tricky. I wouldn't be mad if they brought K'Waun back. All right, that's fine. Bring K'Waun back. Just make sure you bring Dante back too, and figure out who's going to be the second and third behind them. Because the thing is, when you're resigning these guys, then now you have to worry so much about what's behind them. Whereas if you had more healthier players, and it's like, all right, you don't have to worry so much behind them. That's where I think just K'Waun's gone. Maybe this time he finally does go to the Jets with Robert Saleh or something like that. And then I think Tart's going to Miami. I think he's going to Miami. That'll be a sweet matchup with him, and they'll give him the payday that he wants, and no state income tax.
Hey.
Lucky. Hey, I can't relate to that in California.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm loving that state income tax. Although your boy isn't full time quite yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Don't worry.
Take those wins.
Oh yeah, of course. No, and I think real quick though with K'Waun, I'm right there with you. I think if they can bring him back on a really minimum deal, and they kind of get to the end of the road where it's like, hey, no one else is offering you, maybe you just come back and whatever. I feel like that's the only scenario where this happens, but it does feel like they're going to, if not aggressively target it, they'll have contingency plans in place for if they don't bring him back. And I think they should go after that guy in the draft, especially. I love the kid out of Nebraska or the kid out of Houston. I think there are good options for them, even at those late 3 spots. So we'll see how that all plays out. Obviously, it's a little ways away. But
yeah, they got plenty of draft picks for that.
What? Sorry?
They got plenty of draft picks for that. And then you never know, they could package it, maybe move up another round.
That's true. I mean, they do have a lot of picks in that range. And hey, maybe they might get another pick with Jimmy Garoppolo potentially getting traded. So that's where we're going to end things today, Jose. Thank you so much for coming on, man. This was a blast getting to talk to you. It's been too long since I've had you on this show, and I'm certainly going to have you. My screen
held up this time.
Yeah, it did, man. Oh my God, I remember that. Last time we were here, guys, Jose's screen completely collapsed behind him.
For some reason, I thought someone kicked open the door and was going to tackle me. So I looked at the door first. I didn't even notice that. It took like 5 seconds to realize, like, oh, wait, that went down. Like, okay. It wasn't someone bursting through my door because 80 people live here. Because then I would have to close my laptop and be like, all right, someone's getting tackled and something's going down here. Someone's trying to break over my piece.
everyone, I will be back tomorrow with my guy Vinny, 49ers University, every week, of course, at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 Pacific. And then I'll be on with Amin the Dream tomorrow as well. So keep an eye out for that.
Mean.
Amin, man, what a legend, by the way. Everyone, go subscribe to Amin and check him out if you haven't already. Also, go follow Jose right now, everyone. That is my message to you. If you don't do it, it's on me. Go get his follower count up on Twitter. Make sure you're reading all of his work at All 49ers SI. I know I certainly read all of your work, man. And I really appreciate you coming on today. This was a lot of fun. And hey, man, the offseason just keeps getting more interesting and more interesting, right?
Next, you're gonna bring me on. It's gonna be like, do you believe Jimmy Garoppolo would do? I don't know. There's so many endless things. It's just stupid at this point.
Oh man, I'm just expecting something at this, like whatever can go wrong will go wrong at this point. So that's gonna be it for me today, though, guys. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, and I'll be back, like I said, tomorrow. Check that out. Jose, anything else before we get out of here, man?
No, just make sure you guys keep subscribing and paying attention to Ben Meyerson. I know he's gonna phase out a little bit of Niner talk, but you always know he still has a foothold here to talk about it. So keep doing your thing, big guy.
Oh, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And hey, no, I will keep the Niner content coming and some more FSU content. It's right around the corner. We got spring practice next week. Your boy's getting those credentials. He's gonna be there, or I'm gonna be there. I was talking in the third person for a second.
No, that works out. Your boy's gonna be there. Yeah.
Yeah,
the team that's there, but they're not because they suck.
Yeah, no, and you know what? I was on the phone with Grant today telling him I'm stealing quality control. I'm not even gonna lie about it, because the Florida State Seminoles need a lot of freaking quality control right now. I mean, if anyone needs it, it's not the 49ers. I'm telling you. Trust me.
Make sure you bring your own staff and hire us. We can probably do something better.
Oh yeah, no. Hey, if we'll outsource it to 49ers people. I'll hit up Eric Crocker. I'll hit up Jack Hammer. I'll hit up you. I'll hit up. We're gonna create a collective staff and fix whatever the hell is going on. But peace out, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. And hey, looking forward to the future. Happy to continue to talk about my 49ers.
Thanks, Jeff.